record this session so that we can share it. So just in terms of kicking it off, I think it would be interesting to hear from each of you a little bit about why you joined in today. You can, I prefer that we have an interactive dialogue, but if you want to use the chat, certainly won't have a problem with that. But if you can just give me a quick blurb about why you signed up for this today, that would be helpful.
Okay, this is Gustavo. I can start.
Okay.
So I'm currently I currently have a leadership role. For 6 months I'm leading a team of engineers, and I'm very interested in this topic. I want to develop more my career, and so that's why I'm here. I'm about to change careers also, so I'm trying to learn more and getting ready for my next step.
Great. What are you changing to?
I'm actually my contract is about to end.
Okay.
So I'm starting to look for new jobs, new positions. So applying to some jobs.
Okay, great, great. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Gustavo. Appreciate it. Anybody else care to share why they signed up today?
Yeah, sure, I can share with you. So I'm currently working as a data scientist, but it's been a while since I'm working in this role, like for almost 5 years, and I'm looking forward in the next couple of years to move to a like a manager or a leadership role.
Okay.
And I'm looking for actually the vice versa part. So developing like leadership skills
Okay.
for which are like more technical managerial roles, so technical leader roles.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to certainly talk about that today. Edwin, did you want to share? Or?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Well, so let me see. Well, I've been in leadership role before as a leader for an engineering team for a couple of years.
Okay.
And when I got into the position, I realized that, things that made me successful as an engineer before were not exactly the skills that I needed for the leadership position. So it's a learning experience. And since that moment, I realized that this is a field in which I needed to learn and grow more. At this point, I'm not currently in a leadership position because I changed jobs recently.
Okay.
But I decided that I didn't want to, get into that same scenario in the future without, having invested in getting better at it before I get there. So I'm trying to capitalize on the knowledge that I acquired during that short experience, and at the same time, get more, more information, more knowledge that I can use for the future when hopefully I get to be in that position again.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And you're right. So almost always people are promoted. We are promoted or moved into leadership roles often because we are viewed as very or the most technically competent. And so it is an eye-opening experience for some of us to realize, hey, as you said, the things that got me here are not the things that will keep me here and make me the best leader. So that's why we're going to talk about this today. So thank you all for sharing. I'm surprised we don't have more participants, but that's okay. This will be a great small group to talk with, and then we'll share it with others. But anyway, so let's move on to a little bit about me. You can read this, so I'm not going to go through it. I was in a leadership role for, let's see, when did I start in a leadership role? So in a leadership role for about 17 years, a formal leadership role. I would consider myself to have been a leader an informal leader, which I'm sure most of you have had that experience prior to that. I led an HR team at a high level. And in some ways, what we're going to talk about today with tech positions is not different than any kind of technical competence in any particular field, such as human resources or marketing. The same principles apply, in my opinion, to the leadership aspects of the job. I would say that my background was similar to what Edwin described. I tried to do my very best work as an individual contributor. I learned a lot of skills in HR and learned different skills. And I believe that to some degree, that was why I found myself in a leadership role. And then when I got in a leadership role, I started to realize a number of things, and we're going to talk about that. And in some ways, just as you said, Edwin, I too learned firsthand that the things that got me there weren't going to be the skills that I needed going forward. And so it took me a little while to figure that out. I have had some experience supervising a technical team at a high level. By the way, Vincius, if I said that right, thank you for joining us. In my human resources oversight, we had a human resources information systems team. I actually started my individual contributor career at Northern Arizona University as a what I would consider a data analyst role. We were implementing a human resources information system, so I did have some experience actually doing that work, and that did serve me pretty well from an understanding standpoint. Anyway, we're going to move on. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about that, but that just gives you a little bit about where I come from. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on the agenda. We're going to just the basics, talk about this topic, the technical skill development, leadership skills, what the workplace needs are. And so anyway, we'll move on. We'll move through this pretty quickly. Okay, so tell me what you think, just to get us started, about what is the value of developing, and right now I'm going to focus on technical skills in a technical leadership role. And I will say one thing, that one of the reasons I chose this topic is this is common for Udacity students. I get this pretty often. They're really struggling with the question about how deep and broad their technical skills need to be. Maybe they're already in a leadership role, or they aspire to be in a leadership role. So tell me what you think about technical skills in a technical leadership role.
Well, I think that if you're in a leadership role, most likely you will have to make decisions or solve conflicts when it comes to making decisions, maybe by other people in the team. Okay. And so it's fundamental that you have some experience and that you also have technical skills that helps you understand technical problems the team is dealing with, and right. And that will help you also make the best decisions and to solve conflicts within the team.
Right. Yeah, it's a little hard, particularly in this field, I think, to oversee a unit if you had no technical skills, because it is so complex. Having at least a broad understanding and maybe some deep competence in a particular language or technical area can help you, as you said, resolve issues, because that is one role of a leader. Anyone else from the participant group want to share what you think about the value of technical skills in a technical leadership role? Vinicus, we talked, I would love to hear your voice, at least, if you would care to just say hi and maybe weigh in on this. You don't have to, but we have a small group, so having this be interactive will work best.
Hey, hello, people.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Vinicius. I'm a business analyst, and actually, I'm working right now, so it will be a little hard to me to be interactive because I'm following up with two things at the same time.
Okay. Okay, you're
That's-
multitasking, it sounds like, or trying to do that.
Yes, trying to. I think no one can do this very well,
Right,
but
right.
sometimes I try.
Yep, yep, I hear ya. Okay. Okay, well,
Thank you.
thank you for introducing yourself. Okay, all right, so just moving on, if you have, thoughts about this, let's go ahead and talk about that. But I think really to develop this conversation further, maybe we frame the next question this way. In what ways do leaders of technical teams best serve their teams? And I'd like you to think about leaders that you've had in your experience, people you've worked for or maybe alongside of who either served in a technical lead role or some kind of leadership role. And think about what the important qualities and competencies were that they had that made them either a really great leader or a good leader or a not so good leader. What was most effective in supporting the team, and what things did you look at and say, oh, if I ever become a leader or if someone ever puts me in charge, I'm not going to do that. So thoughts about that?
Assuming that you have, a healthy team, I believe that something that I admire in leaders and that I aspire also to be is the kind of leader that gets the best out of everyone in the team. Like, every one of the members of the team, what they are looking to accomplish and areas in which they would like to get better. And you give them the opportunity to develop and to prove themselves. And like every one of us in the team individually could say at the end of the year that we got better as the result of the work that we have been doing together. So it's something that I really like and admire in leaders that I have had in the past as well.
Is that supportive environment where they're really concerned about, developing the skills of their own team and that everyone feels like they had a contribution.
Mm-hmm. And in a way, I think everyone is looking to accomplish that, right? Like
Right.
we're doing a job but at the same time, every one of us is looking to, get better at something. That's perhaps one of the reasons we're here as well.
Right,
So
right.
individually, all of us have an agenda, and the job that we do for a company is a way also to accomplish that.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Edwin. That's great. Others? Gustavo.
Yes, I agree with Edwin about developing the team. Yeah, everyone wants to have the opportunity to do the work and present ideas and get support from the leader for these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a leader that allows people to find solutions, to propose solutions, that wants to listen and give maybe also suggest a different path if it's better. But I think it's a leader that listens to the team and is open to different opinions is very important. I admire leaders that even endorse the employee that okay, go ahead, do, and I will support you no matter what. So that's one experience I had with a leader that he said, you take the decision, and even if I disagree, I will support you.
That's awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that's some key things I heard in what you said, listening, and actually I have that on my list to talk about later on, but so important. it's not just hearing, but really active listening. And as you said, having the courage, a leader having the courage to support someone and encourage them to, as you said, develop their own skills, make decisions, support for that educated risk taking that is so often missing. I mean, particularly on technical teams, you've got a lot of creativity. You've got people with aspirations of being innovative. And the last thing you want to do is not be a leader that supports or be a leader that doesn't support risk taking. That's so important. That's how things get better. And as you said, that leader that helped you with that really, in a genuine way, communicated their support for you, even if they had a different thought. And that is one of the very important things about leadership. And I actually learned that very late in my career when I learned coaching, asking empowering questions, which is one of the key coaching skills, as opposed to telling people what they need to be doing. As experts and we talked earlier about people being moved into leadership roles because they were, they're technically very competent. Sometimes that's all we know how to do at first as leaders. We know how we would approach something. And, Gustavo, what you said is so important. Becoming a leader that has the courage to let their staff shine and take charge and make decisions on their own. That's how they grow and develop themselves. So it's so important to learn how to stop telling people what to do and how to ask those open-ended, empowering questions that will help, support people making their own decisions. Great. Other thoughts?
I think one of the key roles is also to do something like business problem translation to technical terms and making it more clear for your team. I'm not sure if it's the right role for right job for the leader, but it's also very important to do this translation because sometimes, as you said, technical teams want to be creative, but sometimes lose track of what is the exact goal that they should be focusing on.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and absolutely, I think, and really that kind of speaks to what soft skill. What's the soft skill that that falls into as you're translating? What are you doing with your team? Communicating with clarity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Helping frame the situation in language that everyone can understand. So if you don't have those technical skills, it's a little difficult to do that. And it can be done if you don't have an understanding of that particular technical area, then how would you solve that issue? Let's say there was a particular technical problem. Somebody else on your team had more expertise and clarity. You needed to bring clarity to the situation. What do you think would be the best approach?
I think if I'm not knowledgeable enough, then I'll let the senior person take charge and explain it to the team. So, that's what I think.
Yeah. That's excellent. And so many leaders have difficulty letting go and doing that. And so I think that's the challenge, is to get comfortable letting others take the lead, letting others show their expertise. I don't know if any of you participated in the recent webinar. I think Jackie did one on the imposter syndrome, and I didn't watch it, but as a leader, I think sometimes we think we have to be the smartest person in the room. We have to have all the answers. And it's so freeing when we discover, and hopefully we discover it early enough, that we let go of that role. And we say, no, my job is here to be a facilitator, a leader, a support person to serve my employees in the way they need me to serve them best. I think Edwin said it earlier, to know what each person needs, and then to let go of the fact that we will not always have the answers. And that really can challenge some of us, self included. So, but it's very freeing. And I know that from personal experience, that when I learned to let go of the reins and let others take charge and show their expertise, not only did I build a stronger commitment with my team, I think, but it made my job a lot easier. I had a lot more fun. So anyway, other thoughts?
Something else. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that something else that I think it works, or at least it worked for me. It's like, I like to make sure that everyone, for example, at the start of the quarter, make sure everyone in the team is very clear on the objectives of the quarter, for example.
Okay.
And I would go to a one-on-one and ask, do you have the objectives of the quarter clear? And do you know the role that you're going to play in this quarter?
Mhm.
And the person would say, yes, I understand. Or they would say, no, I don't. So let's talk about that. And
Right.
so that is really helpful in a sense that now I could let go of responsibility, because I have a technical team. Maybe they know the answer, maybe they don't know,
Right.
but I know they know that north is in this direction. So I don't know how we're going to get there. You guys
Mhm.
are supposed to, help us get there. I don't know all the answers. Every one of you have an assignment, and you have to go investigate and come up with ideas, and maybe we can discuss them. But I don't have to be, constantly telling them what to do if they
Right.
know where we're supposed to get to.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What you're doing is not only clarifying understanding, but you're communicating in a concrete way the expectations, right? So you're removing as much ambiguity as possible, which really is the role of a great leader, is to really make sure everyone's on the same page. So thank you for sharing that. That's so important. Other thoughts? So what might be, I want to move on to another, this has been great conversation. I want to move on to another question before we leave this slide. What might be a reason or a unique situation where a leader really needs to have some deep technical skills in a certain area? Any circumstances might create that situation?
Well, I think there are a few things that I can think that has been like my experience.
Okay.
One aspect is that sometimes the leader needs to represent the team, and when he is in a meeting with business people, or he has to make a decision before the people he or she is representing the team for. He may need some technical skills and knowledge of how difficult it is to accomplish a task. Questions like how long this is going to take, and there is even a moral responsibility sometimes when he's making that kind of decisions. Like if you go to a meeting and they are pressuring you to have something ready for 1 week, and it's not possible, you're even making a moral decision there. You could be compromising the lives of your team and things like that.
Right.
So having a good understanding of the complexity of a problem, and whether it is possible to do it in a certain amount of time, it's key. And then also when having discussions with the team, like you were saying before, it is not the case that every time the team agrees with the way you think the problem needs to be solved. And so it requires, like, for example, if you know that your idea is the right way to solve the problem, so you have to be ready to have an open discussion. And like if the team is adamant in that is not the way, you have to kind of be ready to take them to the place where you are. And that is not easy. Like you have to be ready to ask difficult questions, and eventually even decide whether you were right or wrong.
Right.
But yeah, it requires certain understanding of the technical aspects to have that discussion.
Right. And I think particularly in leading a technical team, the kind of technical team that we're talking about, that, you know, students are studying those kinds of courses at Udacity, you know, oftentimes I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. Oftentimes I run into the student who's maybe early in their career and really thinks that before they can go for the leadership role, they really need to know all the languages, or know, you know, have deep skills in all the particular areas of artificial intelligence or something like that. And one of the things I encourage them to think about is having high level exposure. Even as you described, Edwin, you know, decision making and representing the team, even having a high level understanding of, you know, the full scope of what you supervise, but not having deep understanding in all the particular areas, you can be very effective. At least that's my opinion, especially if, as Needy said, how you use your resources. Letting others, if you're, you know, if you need more expertise, you can rely on one of your team. I think, so anyway, any thoughts on that? Okay.
Yeah, so
Yes, Gustavo.
depending, yeah, I would say depending also on the team profile, right? If most of the team are less experienced engineers, let's say, and then the leader would need to have strong technical skills to lead the team, right? And
Right.
also to give orientation and share his experience. So I think in this scenario, also the leader will need strong technical skills, and depends also on how the company is structured, right? The leadership. I think in line with what Edwin said, some companies require the team leaders to have strong technical skills, and
Mhm.
not only the required soft skills for leadership.
Mhm. Absolutely. The profile of the team, the company structure, the size of the team, right? You have a small team, small organization, the leader may actually play an individual contributor role in addition to their leadership role. So I think that's why I said in the introduction to this session, you know, it really depends. And, you know, we need to be prepared for any situation. But in general, I think really developing your soft skills as a leader will serve you best. And then you already know you have the technical competence to jump in and learn what you need to learn in a pinch, or figure out a resource, you know, to serve that role. So thank you for sharing that, Gustavo. I think that's absolutely right. The company structure, team size, the makeup of the team, the roles and responsibilities may dictate how much or how deep the leader's technical skills need to be. So, okay. So I wanted to share with you a study that was conducted, actually looks like about 7 years ago, by an organizational development company called Blessing White. And the things that I put on the slide here, the things that they have identified as what the workplace needs of technical people are listed here, the 6 critical things. Anything surprise you? I guess maybe in
What
terms,
is
oh, go ahead.
what is
Go ahead.
collegial support?
Collegial
I don't.
support and sharing. Creating an environment such that, you know, technical people feel safe to share their, you know, sharing information with each other, a safe environment, a manager who in my mind, that's a manager or a leader who deals with conflict rapidly You know, if you have interpersonal conflict, you want to take care of that early on so it doesn't become a detractor from the team moving forward together and getting along and being comfortable sharing with other. Walking the talk as far as sharing information, not being territorial with information or expertise, demonstrating, you know, I guess as a leader, I would demonstrate that one of my expectations is that we all share information with each other. We help each other be successful. It's not about competition. It's about collaboration. Those are my thoughts. Others have thoughts. That's a really good question Edwin asked. Anyone else?
I'm a bit confused about the professional identification. So what does this really mean?
Okay. So in terms of their study, what I read was that people in these kinds of technical fields have a high degree of, place a high degree of value on their own professional identification, being seen as an expert, being seen as competent, being allowed to be creative and innovative. And so what they thrive under is a leadership style that really provides the kind of support that we've been talking about so far today. You know, if you've ever worked in a situation, have you ever worked in a situation where your manager was competing with you with their own expertise? I hope not, but it can happen.
But it can happen, yeah. So
Yeah.
I've seen managers sometimes looking up and not looking down, meaning not focusing on their team enough, but focusing on what their managers want from them. And that kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know where to put that in this bullet points,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, I've seen that happening, and that makes the team suffer a lot because
Right.
they promise too much and then the team suffers.
Right. Well, and maybe we could probably put it in a couple categories. In my own thought process, that you're right, that happens. Achievement might be if you have a leader who is you know, very achievement focused, and many of us are, or we wouldn't be in a leadership role. But the trick is to find the balance between not selling your team out and you know, making reasonable commitments, involving the team in what's possible and having those discussions early on, and realizing that you can only push people so far, and you know and also being there to support them. So I think what you say is very important, Nidhi. We need to make sure that as leaders that we aren't selling our team out. We're not so focused on our own credit and achievement that we lose sight of who's doing the work. And again, being maybe back to the support piece, being a leader who accepts responsibility and even takes blame when it's needed, but is always focused on giving credit to the team or the folks on the team who deserve the credit.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yes,
Okay, I'll read one paragraph from that study. You can look this up if you're interested, but one of the paragraphs that kind of summarized the points on the slide was, such technical people tend to fit specific criteria such as advanced degrees and specific roles or functions. For the purpose of organizational development, though, what unites them as a specific population, these are the 6 key workplace needs that must be addressed for them to thrive. So that's kind of the context for this list. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on this? I have one more article I can share about this, but I want to make sure you get a chance to weigh in on this if you have thoughts.
I wanted to comment on something that Nidhi mentioned a moment ago when she said, for example, leaders who just, you know, want to to do the things only for their own benefit and not for the benefit of the team. And I think the problem that I have noticed, even in organizations that have good leaders, is that leaders are most of the time evaluated by the results that their team produce and not by their leadership skills. So something that I used to tell my manager is why my OKRs or my objectives are only about delivering this or that result and not are about how much did you develop your people, how motivated is your team, and and how well are you communicating objectives, or how well are things working on your team, right?
Right.
None of those things are part of the OKRs or objectives that the leader has to deliver at the end of the quarter. None of those things are your evaluation. Your evaluation is, was the project delivered on time? And nobody cares how you delivered on time. And so I really find that it's a serious problem in the industry and everywhere else.
Sure.
And it's rare to find an organization where leaders are evaluated for the execution of their leadership role, and for the development and exercise of their leadership skills, and not for the results that the team is at the end delivering. And so I think that's a mistake, and that creates this kind of leaders where they are only looking for themselves and not for the team, because that will be the wrong kind of leader.
You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, this becomes something that's perpetuated upward and downward throughout an organization. If they get it right, the whole organization can be in great shape if they have leaders at all levels who understand the concept of what you just said. And unfortunately, so many people do not, or they become a roadblock to that. And so this is a key organizational issue. It's about the measurement criteria. We are so focused on bottom line results that so many times we forget about what's really important. And the things that, in my mind, what you said was spot on. And it's about sustaining the organization and the ability to deliver results long term. If you don't pay attention to supporting the team and the leadership skills of all of your leaders, even developing good leadership skills with your individual contributors is important. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Then you're lost, and your ability to sustain that organization long term and keep your people happy and support their development, that becomes a real struggle. Other thoughts on this? Thank you for bringing that up. I want to work for you in my next life, Edwin.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
You should find a company like that, Edwin. I'll send you my resume also.
Great. Well, you all have great thoughts on this. I suspect you're all either great leaders already, even if you don't have the formal role, but I know that a couple of you at least are doing that kind of role now. One other thing I want to share, and there's a citation at the end of this presentation for Harvard Business Review. They have great leadership articles, so I highly suggest that if you have an interest in this topic, that you read those articles. But I found a particular statement that kind of speaks to what we've been talking about today. Clever people want a high degree of organizational protection and recognition that their ideas are important. Needy, maybe this gets to the professional identification a little bit. They also demand the freedom to explore and fail. This is similar to what was mentioned earlier about the risk taking. They expect their leaders to be intellectually on their plane, but they do not want a leader's talent and skills to outshine their own. That, I thought, really kind of encapsulated the whole professional identification piece, that last part. Thoughts or comments on this?
I have seen really unhealthy, I don't know if call it a culture where there, there's this culture of finger pointing when somebody makes a mistake. The rest want to know who made a mistake, and
Right.
it's just like so unhealthy for the team that happens. And so I think like something that I believe that has been really useful is the opposite way of thinking, like the realization that you typically never get to the right answer the first time, and that you're going to make mistakes, and that making those mistakes are okay, provided that you don't repeat them over and over, right?
Right. Right.
And so that kind of creates this safe environment where you can say what you're thinking, and you can go and try ideas and find out if those ideas are working, and maybe build on top of those ideas. So I think that's great, and I have seen that works much better than the opposite, because I have lived the two sides of the coin.
Right. So that's great, and it it really kind of speaks to how important the soft skills are in a leadership role, and I appreciate you providing that insight. In some ways, it also addresses that bullet, collegial support. It addresses many of those areas that the Blessing White study uncovered. So thank you for that. So as an individual contributor, let's talk about the kind of the reverse question. What's important for an individual contributor? Say, what are the soft skills or the leadership skills that are important? We're just going to hit this pretty quickly because I want to talk about developing leadership skills before we leave the session. But what are your thoughts around this? What are the typical, if you were hiring an individual contributor, someone who's not in a formal leadership role, what kinds of soft skills would you look for?
I think
For me-
we are talking. Go ahead, Midi.
No, it's okay. You go ahead.
No,
Midi,
please.
go for
I'll talk
it.
later.
We'll get to
Okay.
Gustavo in a minute. Gustavo.
Okay, so I think it's still communication. At least where I work, we still hire people who are able to kind of translate their contributions in a language which is more understandable for the leader if he's not very technical, and still able to get the gist or the main message across. And individual, and I think also like communication still, but speaking their mind, what they think, not holding themselves back, and also this group, so team skills, so able to work with other people to understand you are an individual contributor, but you
Right.
still cannot survive on your own. You need your team around you.
Great. Those are three great ones. Yeah. Okay. Communicating and speaking directly and being, having the courage of conviction to speak from your heart and your head, right? What you really feel and what you really think. Okay. Gustavo, please add to that.
So yes, about this collaborative work. So a leader, when he becomes a leader, he cannot think only about himself, right? He's thinking about the team. So I think this in an individual contributor is also very important, that he's also thinking about the team and how he can help and support the team, not only getting his job done. I really like this environment where people are collaborating and helping each other. I think this is very, very good environment.
Right. Even if you never aspire to become a leader, the best thing you can do to support the team and yourself, honestly, is to take an active role in helping others be successful. There's plenty of credit to go around in the right organization. The ideal organization being one like Edwin described, where everyone feels supported and people get along and there's not this competition. But so you can see where that is really the job of the leader. But absolutely, at individual contributor role, those team skills, being able to collaborate with others, and problem solving is another particular area, and that collaboration is key to that. Any other leadership skills that you think that individual contributors need to have? Anyone?
I think that something that I find really helpful is that members of the team are independent thinkers. That because it's like I was saying before, it's rarely the case that the leader has all the answers, and in particularly in this industry, you face problems that you have not faced before as a team, and you don't know how you're going to solve them. So you need the help of the team, and you don't want people in your team that maybe are really good technically speaking, but they never speak their minds. You don't know what they are thinking. And so I'd rather have people on the team that are independent thinkers, that like to challenge ideas, or that at least would like to contribute on the ideas that others have said and things like that. I think that's fundamental for the team to work well. And there is a phrase in Spanish, I don't know how to say it in English, but it's something like I rather like people that I have to contain than people that I have to be constantly, spurring on or trying to, get into action. So that's better. So I think that that's something that I believe is fundamental.
Right. People not afraid, as you and Nidhi both said, that will speak their mind. They're independent thinkers. Really important in a lot of key areas: conflict resolution, problem solving. Thank you. Great items to add to the list. Two others that I'd like to add include resiliency and adaptability. I think that so many times the things that get in the way of people being successful is their resistance to change and new ideas, or not being resilient to bounce back from things that maybe become a little bit of an inhibitor, or that adaptability to change is really important for both individual contributors and leaders. And then project management and good time management skill are a couple I'll just throw in at the end. We don't need to really discuss those, but anyway, okay, thank you all for that. That's great. All right, so let's get to the kind of the meat of the matter. And I want to know what your thoughts are on how to develop leadership skills. And what's nice about this conversation is we've identified some high-level leadership skills that are really important. And we've also talked about what's important as an individual contributor. And there is definitely some overlap. The breadth and depth might be different, but there's definitely some overlap. So that puts people who will hone their soft skills in individual contributor roles. It really puts them in the place of being able to advance if they develop those well, if they have that aspiration. And so I think there's quite a bit of overlap here in what we're talking about. But the how-to is the big question. And I have some answers, but I'd like to hear if anyone, and let's just maybe weigh in with a couple of quick thoughts on what's the best way to develop these.
Maybe mentor somebody, act as a mentor for your fellow colleague who's a bit junior to you, maybe. And people who can take interns, perhaps. I mean, there are options, but I mean, put yourself in those shoes for a while.
Find someone who does this well and learn all you can about them. And as you say, maybe request that you have a formal mentorship arrangement with that person. That's an excellent idea that you bring up about the mentorship. And that is different than a coach. A mentor is somebody who works in the field, who has the skills you aspire to have, that is willing to lead you through kind of how they develop that. It's not to say that that's the only way to develop that for yourself, but a mentor is different than a coach in this way. Okay, Gustavo?
So I think that the best is to try to develop the skills before you become a leader, right? So while you are contributing in a team, you identify the skills you want to develop and you try to develop them while you are individual contributor. So you can be a leader without the formal position. So I think that's the good approach on how to develop.
Okay, great. Yeah, you know, having the foresight to start working on this early. But then, you know, it can take a lifetime to really learn all of those skills. And we each have strengths and things that we're not so strong at. So really getting committed to knowing where your strengths are, and sometimes learning to develop those areas that you might consider a weakness. Although sometimes you just hire a person to work with you to fill that gap and they become a consultant for you. We're not all good at all things. And that can be another approach. We can get better, but we may not be the best at certain things. And so hiring to fill that gap, as long as you listen to that person and you use their expertise, can be really beneficial if you have a gap as a leader. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's key also, right? To know that you don't know everything, that you will never be good at everything. So
right.
I think knowing that is also very important to keep developing and keep growing. We always learn, right, during our entire life.
Right. And as a leader, being self-aware, I like what you said about that, knowing what we know and don't know, and and then not holding ourselves to the standard that we have to know everything. I mean, it's not possible really to do everything well. So having that self-awareness of knowing where our strengths lie and where we need to backfill or hire to fill the gaps. Or maybe we do have to get stronger in certain areas. So what are some other, thank you for that, Gustavo. What are some ways, I mean, that's the question I get asked, how can I do this? I'm not in a leadership role now. What can I do to, as Gustavo said, be ready when that comes up? What are some how-to things that you all think would work or that you've used?
I think a variation also what Nidhi mentioned is that sometimes you may not have a role model where you work, or it could even be so unfortunate of not having a role model in the past. But then you can resort to good books as well as a way to finding role models and expanding the understanding of what it means to be a good leader. So that helps. And then in my case, I think I also use the kind of negative role model in the sense of saying this is the kind of leader I don't want to be. Like, for example, from things that I have experienced in the past, and say, well, if I get to be a leader, this is not the kind of leader I want to be. So that makes me think, how can I be, a leader that is not like this? And so there is a lot of self-evaluation, like you were saying, trying to find what are my weaknesses or what are areas in which I could get better. And that gives me like a north of things that I need to learn or investigate.
Absolutely. That negative role model is so key. I mean, I think that was probably the most powerful thing in my leadership development. I work for some really great people, most of them, thankfully. But there were things with each leader that I said, this doesn't serve me well as an employee that works for them and the team well. and they do this really well, and I don't think they do this really well. I still respect them, but you know, making note of those issues and then figuring out how can I be better at this. And we can't be better at everything, but that's, even if you have a self-awareness, you know that you're too dangerous in a certain area and you need to, you know, relinquish the reins to somebody else to handle that for you. So reading good books is an excellent suggestion for how to become more aware of the skills that you need and how to develop those. I giving you some resources at the end. There are so many books out there, but I found a few resources and we'll talk about them briefly in a minute. The other suggestion I want to leave the group with is joining either an online or in-person group when COVID's over, leadership groups, going to conferences, participating in dialogues like we're having today, learning from others what worked well for them, how they polished their skills, built their competencies, informal networking, even online with other leaders to talk about, you know, what was helpful for them. And then, you know, just informally working with your colleagues to build your own confidence and get feedback. You know, one thing that hasn't come up yet today that I want to say is becoming a leader who is not afraid of feedback and regularly asks for feedback is so key to developing that self-awareness and being able to make the change that you need to make to serve your employees better. So anyway, we've covered a lot of topics here today. I appreciate so much. I know we had a smaller group than normal, but yeah, I think it worked very well. And I thank you all for being great participants, and you have lots to share, lots of good things to share. And so I very much value what you say today, and thanks again for that. But the takeaway here is I want to hear from each of you if I could. I think we got started a few minutes late. So if you could just share one thing that is your takeaway today, either a new thought or something that you hadn't been focused on before, or even an action item that you might take to move yourself forward. Who would like to start?
If I can, I
Yes,
think it was very nice to have a small group. Also to hear the same thoughts being resonated. So that helped. So the interactivity was nice. And also knowing sometimes you think about what you should be doing, but getting an expert tell you that these are the right things to do. That's, I think, the key takeaway for me.
Great.
So it's not like everything was new, but of course, some points sometimes we forget and we focus more on few things. And this is good for looking at a broader picture.
Great. Thank you for being part of this today. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to share their takeaway?
Yeah, so I think this was a great group. I heard things that I very aligned with my thoughts about leadership. So it's nice to know that more people think that way. So I'm glad to have participated in this group today.
And thank you for all you offered to the group. It's great. Vinicius or Edwin?
Yes, I think that I feel the same way as others have expressed. And this kind of aligns with what you were saying at the end, like trying to find opportunities to talk with other people that are more experienced in leadership roles, or like in our case, are trying to get better at it. So I think that's enriching. By one hand, it could be like you hear that maybe what you're doing is you're on the right path, or maybe you get to learn that some of the things that you were doing maybe wouldn't work, or maybe you get to learn new things that
Right.
you had not thought about.
Right.
So for me, some of the things that you put on the slide of, the list of things that you would expect a leader should develop, I find that it was new for me, that I could investigate that. And also having this experience of talking with you all have been enriching, helpful. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thanks for your participation today. Vinicius, would you like to share your takeaway? Okay, so one final slide. I'll leave this up, and you'll get a copy of this presentation. Here are there's a book here. There is an article from the Harvard Business Review, The Leading Clever People. If you haven't read Daniel Goleman's Working with Emotional Intelligence, he's written several books on emotional intelligence. I think that's really important. There is a TED Talks. You're probably familiar with those. There's the top 30 best on leadership, which I think are really, many of them are very interesting. Don't miss the one by Simon Sinek, which is the first one on becoming an inspiring leader, and Sheryl Sandberg, who of course used to be the Google CEO, I think, and then now Facebook, or I don't know if she's the current one of Facebook, but and then I also found an article for those who are looking to develop their soft skills for technical people. So just a few of the very many resources available. And okay, well, thank you all. I appreciate having you here today, and learning from you and getting your insights. And I wish you all the best in your journey to become better leaders or develop your leadership skills. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you
great
all.
Thank you so
day.
much.
All right.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.